This is episode 9 of the Nobi Yet podcast, and the following was recorded on January 20th at 3:04 p.m. Eastern Time. My guest today is Yuxuan, I think he's my only friend who is actively pursuing a non-traditional path in entrepreneurship. So we first met in university, and we played the same software engineering recruitment game. This is the game where we shoot our resumes into the void for like 100 or 200 companies, hoping to get an internship offer or like at least an apply for an interview. Now, admittedly, where I was pretty risk adverse back then, and arguably still am so right now, he decided to say no to his big tech offers and decided to pursue his own path in starting a healthcare company. Along the way, he also dabbled a bit with dropshipping and selling products online. In this conversation, we talk about many things, like how he decided to ditch the traditional path, the feeling of making his first dollar, how he thinks about failure, the chaotic follow-up to a TikTok video of his product going viral, and much more. So strap in and enjoy this episode. How would you describe what you do?
I run a home care company. Yes.
And how did this start?
So it started in 2013 when I was still in school. At the time I really wanted to build a business, and especially after working multiple internships during university, each time I worked an internship, I thought that a different company would bring me a different experience and I would like it. But it turns out, I think, working an internship or working at a tech company isn't really what I wanted to do. I don't think it excites me enough, and I don't really want to be like a screw in the big system sort of thing. I want to build the system myself. I feel like it just makes me more excited to live my life, basically. And I think I was also thinking about like maybe 10 years down the line, if I do work in tech, I don't think I would be as excited as versus if I built something on my own. So that was the main reason why I wanted to start a company. And now why a home care company? It was especially because my mom worked in the field and she sort of has like a basis of the company already. And going into it, I thought it would be good if I could just improve on it and iterate. Yeah.
Let's step back a little bit into university then. So you mentioned you got a lot of internships, and obviously we were roommates, so I'm pretty privy to them. But if I kind of look at the roster of internships you've been at, they're internships that people would dream about, at least back at that age of like 19 or 20, when everyone was kind of desperate to find a good company to work at. And you mentioned some reasons of walking away from it. What was that decision process like to decide rejecting your last offer? I forget which one that was, but rejecting your last offer of going full time and just taking this other route of trying to start your own company?
I think sometimes for big life decisions, the more you think about it, the more you're not going to make a decision, the more you're going to make a decision that other people would favor. Like logically, it makes sense to stay in an internship or take a full-time offer because it's stable, it pays good, it's comfortable, good work-life balance, right? But if you just don't want to do it, then why force yourself, sort of thing? So I think a lot of the times in life, it's like you can't really logically think about a reason why you would do something. If you really don't like it, just don't do it. Or if you really like it, then just do it. And I think this kind of decision is something that I really struggled with. This is probably the only decision that I made just for myself in my entire life. Or up to that point, that was the only decision that I made purely because I liked it or I didn't like it. But I think a lot of the other decisions Like, let's say if I had two offers and I was comparing which one I would go to, like, usually you would think of it more of like a logical, you would think through it in a logical process where you compare the salary, compare the work-life balance, the benefits, the career growth, and things like that, right? But I think sometimes you can't really compare and just like gotta go with the decision. So that was my so I guess wrapping up is the main decision process was just I like this, so I wanted to do it. That's it.
That sounds relatively simplistic. Like, I
Yes.
like this, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
What was that uncertainty like when actually making the decision?
Well, I think like especially coming from an Asian family, right? Like you're expected to get a stable job, sort of, and then if you don't, parents worry, grandparents worry, everyone else worries if you're making the right decision. I still don't know if I made the right decision, but um, like you kind of can rationalize. I think if you go logical, right? You can think of like 100 different reasons for why I should work a software engineering job, and there's 100 reasons why I shouldn't, or just do a startup. So it depends on which. So if you have 100 reasons for both, right, you're not going to figure out the right answer. So at the time, I was also like logically trying to logically think through the different reasons. Oh, so if I build a startup, there's a unlimited upside potential, and there's a possibility of scaling,
Mm,
and I would learn a lot of like business knowledge, right, and how to. I think this skill would enable me to do well in not just tech but any industry. Whereas tech, oh, you get a good salary and the work life balance is good, and then you can enjoy your life. These are all benefits for both sides. But when you have like when you can think of so many reasons for both options, then ultimately just comes down to which one you like more. So you
mm.
mentioned it's overly simplistic, right? But that is what it is at the core. Like it's a simple decision, but it's not easy to make.
Was first committing to tech in terms of finding internships, or maybe even taking another step back, committing to U of T engineering, and then kind of this software internship game, was that decision easy, or was it mostly just like following the crowd at that stage?
I think that stage was it was easy in the sense that I was following the crowd, right? It's always easier to follow the crowd if everyone's doing it, just like do it, right? But I do
Mm,
think like looking back now, um, because sometimes I would watch YouTube or see stories online about like very young entrepreneurs, like maybe like 18, 19, and they would like have a very big app or have like a very successful business already at that age when we were struggling to find internships, right?
mm,
And I think it's actually easier to do these things when you're young because as you get older, the more you learn, the more things you have to consider, the harder it is to just make a decision and follow through. So I think in high school, it was really, really easy for me to just study because that was the only thing I knew that I should do. So
mm,
all I had to do was just go to the library and study. And when I entered university, okay, so studying is not only one thing, and you have to also consider extracurriculars, and you have to consider finding an internship. So then you would have to consider, okay, what is the meaning of doing all these things? Like, what's the point of studying? What's the point of doing extracurriculars? What's the point of finding internships? And at the end, my conclusion was, okay, I studied so I can find a good job and make money. So I wanted to make money to live, right? So out of these things, I figured that finding an internship was the best way of making money so I can live better.
mm,
So that's why out of the three things, I would focus on internships and sort of like didn't do as good on the other two
mm,
as I figured that out. Um, yeah, and then after that, when I was about to graduate, I figured, okay, well, a tech job is good, right? But it's I'm not exactly sure if I would do it for my entire life. At the time, I didn't really understand the, how people could sit in a cubicle for their entire life and just stare at the same view. Right? Obviously, they would have weekends, they would have time, vacation time, right? But it was still something that I don't think excites me. I think you would relate to this because we were at Huawei together in second
Mm.
year, right? So I think especially from that experience, although like they all have vacation, they all have work related travel as well, but I still don't think that's it's just not for me, right?
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
that experience was like particularly bad as well because the office was like kind of depressing.
yeah,
Like it
yeah,
was it wasn't like one of those modern
yeah,
Google
yeah,
like tech offices. It was literally like one of those old standard like cubicle offices, which made it like
yes,
extra
yes,
sad and there was like no color.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So then, but then after experiencing that, right, and then right after that, I had a Google internship. Obviously, the office was better, but realistically, it's still an office. It's still a place where you have to work. And if you decide to stay there, you're still going to stay there for your entire life, unless you jump companies or unless you switch careers, right?
Mm.
So just thinking through that, I think, um, yeah, staying in one environment's not something I want to do. And another thing is, I sometimes like I realize a lot of people like me, they just don't like working for someone else. Like they want the ability for their decision to impact the business, and they want that decision, they want a correct decision to have, they want the upside to that decision to for themselves, or at least mostly for themselves, right? So in a, I think why software engineers get paid that much is because they're shipping code and each line of code gets delivered to like billions of customers, and which means they're impacting lots of people with a single line of code. Hence, they're getting paid well. But same with business, right? Business, when you make an important decision, you you affect a lot of people, and if that decision was good, then you make lot of money. And I think that's more exciting for me compared to shipping a line of code. Yeah,
Mm. So
ultimately just these. Yeah.
I guess the feeling of like working at Google when like these big high tech companies, like the luster of it, like fell off pretty fast.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely really relatable. I remember
I mean,
like,
especially like if you're hanging around, like the luster of it's only a luster if you're not there, and the moment you get there, it's like it becomes a norm, right? And once it becomes a norm, there's no more luster.
do you feel like that luster had gone away as well for like entrepreneurship? I guess now.
Mm, I wouldn't say so, but it's definitely not the same as when you before you tried. Before you try it, I think before you try it, you can't really, or let's put it this way. Before you start entrepreneurship, you know there's going to be good sides and bad sides. You kind of know how the good sides are because like people posting all over social media, but you don't know how bad the bad sides are.
Mm,
And then although you know like what type of things are going to happen, it's different when you actually experience it, right?
mm.
So like if you yeah, so I think the luster is still there because when I watch business videos, I still feel very excited, especially like let's say Alex Hormozy. His most recent video, he was I watched the
Puts me in
full
a well.
video. Yes. He he basically dissected someone else's business and then sort of like outlined the steps. Okay, what did you do around here? What did you do around there? Like that video got me very excited. I think I just really like seeing material like that. And I enjoy like learning about like business strategy and how to make money, right, in this world because like you need money for everything. Yeah.
So you rejected the offer from your full
Hmm.
time and you went into entrepreneurship. And if I recall, you did the healthcare company, but then you did drop shipping for a while, and
Hmm.
then you're back with a healthcare company.
Yes.
I guess through these three different phases. I don't know if you could call it a phase if they're like
Mm.
discretely separate. But I guess during these general eras, what did making your first dollar feel like? And then now, what does making money for yourself feel like?
I think it's different. I think making money through e-commerce and making money through our home care company is very different because the home care company I share with my mom. So we often like we would divide the profits, right? And that feels very different because I'm not doing the actual work. And oftentimes, like the way I get profits because well, I made a website for it, and then some client clicked on it, and then we converted them into a customer. And but I'm not the one actually providing the service. And although I have tried providing or doing the home care myself, but I don't. It doesn't feel the same way as making money through e-commerce. I think e-commerce is more explosive, whereas this is more like slow. And then when I made,
Mm.
I think e-commerce, when you make the first sale, it's like, oh shit, this works. But
Mm.
then I think the real moment is when you make like when for context, I was using TikTok as my main marketing method back when I first started, and I think at that time I was so TikTok is weird in the sense it's either you get nothing or you get a lot.
This feast or
So
famine.
yeah, most of your videos are around 200 views. The moment one video goes viral, that's gonna be like 2, 3, 4 million views. Compared
Mm.
to your 200, that's like crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I got very lucky in my first product that I got a viral video, I think on the fifth video. And my process, and uh, I was diverging, but when you get your first viral video, like a lot of the sales just like go to your website. A lot of people go to your website, hence a lot of sales. And that feeling is just like, holy shit, what the fuck happened? Like that like describes my feeling, right? Um, but then you realize like it's not stable. It's like for example, software engineering, um, you get a set amount each month, or you get stock options, bonuses, whatever. But I think for this, it's like a big burst, and then it stops like completely. And then maybe there's like smaller bursts in the future, but then it's like unless you do something different, right? Or have a different product, have a different advertising strategy, then it's not going to keep bursting like that.
Mm. What was handling the burst like? So you mentioned the holy fuck moment of
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of sales. But
Mm-hmm.
like you need to fulfill the sales, right? I presume.
Yes.
Unless
Yes.
they get their money back. What was that like? Because I assume
Mm.
you can't predict volume that well if you're just like posting videos on TikTok and it's like 200,
Yeah.
300, 200 views and then it's like, "Oh my god, 5 million."
Yeah. But I mean, 5 million is not 5 million sales. It's
It's
like
like
way less
some
than that.
percentage of 5 million,
Yeah.
but
But
even a small percentage of 5 million is a lot.
so I think to begin with, right? Usually, like I myself was fear. I had the same fear as well, or I had that fear. Um, the first thing you think about is worst case, you can just return it because you spend no effort on the marketing other than make TikTok videos, which costed like what a day at
Mm.
max. So there was no marketing cost, and all you did was just post a video. That was zero marketing cost, and you don't. I didn't have the products yet because I didn't know if the video was gonna go viral. Like yeah, if I bought inventory beforehand and the video didn't go viral, that would just be a waste of time, right?
Mm.
Unless I was really confident in the product. We'll get into that later. But but my point is first, there's no upfront cost. You don't have to be afraid of anything. In worst case, if they buy it and you can't ship it, just return their money. It's fine.
Mm.
Nothing's gonna happen. And then so with that in mind, if you do want to keep their money, then you have to find a product or you have to fulfill the product. So this is where you go on AliExpress or Alibaba or like in my case, because I'm Chinese, I speak Chinese, I can go on the Chinese version of the website, just find a link, right? And then
Mm.
after that, you contact a contact someone needs to deliver the product. So ideally, that's someone in China. So in my case, I found a sourcing agent where they're able to contact Alibaba or a factory in Alibaba, get the product to them, and then they would send the package directly to the customer in the US, in the UK, or wherever they are in the world, and I would just pay them via PayPal. PayPal, yeah. So that's the process.
Mm.
But like I basically figured that process out in a day. So like right after the sales, I knew the agent from another thing before. I
Hmm.
just contacted them and like, oh, can you do this? They're like, oh, I can. Cool, let's do it.
Did you make those logical conclusions immediately? Like when you said, "Oh, like worst case scenario, just return the money," and like when we logically think about it, even from me who has no experience, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. Like worst case, you
Yeah.
just return everything, and presumably, if you don't have a brand, there's no like impact on your reputation.
Hmm.
But was this an easy conclusion to make? I assume there's also like a lot of emotional like responses as well of like
Yes. Yes.
holy shit. So then there's like kind of like the amazement,
Hmm.
but then there's like the fear of like, for example, maybe if we draw on a parallel to school, it's kind of like, okay, what's the worst case for like messing up a quiz or like
Yeah.
exam? You just get a bad mark, right? But then
Yeah.
there's like kind of all the substance we add on that of like, oh my god, I'm gonna like fail my quiz, fail my exam, and then I'm gonna do bad. I'm not gonna find a job. I'm gonna die. So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
regression towards death, and that's kind of like the more emotional part speaking. Is that also present as you were going through that and kind of reasoning with yourself and trying to be bold and fulfilling these orders?
Yes. It's interesting you mention that because I think a lot of that happened before even posting my first video, or even before that was before I even registered the home care company. So the home care started before that, right?
Mm,
Um, at the time, I had a lot of debate on like whether things are ethical or not. For example, like a lot of like dropshipping has a bad connotation, right? But
yeah.
how is that different from Apple selling an iPhone? Apple sources their products from China. They just combine it and the product is better. Does that make them a legitimate company compared to like a random dropshipping company in China making like a small product? So I think ultimately it comes down like, does the customer find value in whatever you're providing them? And then are they okay with the price they're paying? Right? You're gonna find people like arguing over price everywhere, and you're gonna find people complaining about your product everywhere, asking for refunds everywhere. And like people get refunds from Apple all the time, right? Even if they have a super great product.
Mm,
So like when you think about all these things, and it's like, okay, what's the point? Just do it. If they don't like it, I'll just give them their money back, right? And then as I did it, right, as I provided refunds, I realized a lot of people are okay with their money back. A lot of people are just stingy, and then sometimes, so what happens is they ask for a return. Now I'm like, okay, you can keep the product, and I'll give you 50% back. Is that okay with you? And then most of the time, actually like 90% of the time, they're okay with that.
mm.
So which is interesting, right? Because that means they're actually okay with the product. They just don't want to pay that much, or they just want some money back. So, and then you realize it's like, okay, but I mean, going back to your question of did I make the decisions at the time? I think going into this project, I forced myself not to think about these things because, or else I would have never started to I would have never made the first video to begin with. Like, the more I think about these things, the more it's going to hold me back, right? So, at the time, I was like, okay, fuck everything. I'm going to make one video per day, at least for 5 days, and let's see how it goes. Right. And I didn't post it or some like because I was new to video editing and shooting videos and things like
Mm.
that. Sometimes I post one, sometimes I didn't post, sometimes I posted two a day. I didn't care, I just posted. And then at some point, and then I got really lucky that it went viral, but I didn't think about it much. And then when the virality hit, and I didn't have a sourcing or I didn't have an agent, obviously you want the money, then you have to ship the product, right? But there are strategies to delay that too. Like for example, it's like
Mm,
okay, shit, I didn't find my source. Let's say hypothetically, I didn't find my sourcing agent in time, and I delayed a week. So originally, I promised 2 weeks it's going to be delivered. Now it's going to take 3 weeks. The easiest thing to do is just like send them an email and say, "Oh shit, I'm sorry. If you want the refund, I can refund it to you now." Or you can give them a free gift, or you can refund half of it and still ship. Now keep in mind the margin was like over 50% because I had no marketing cost, so it would make sense
mm,
even if I give them 50% off what they paid, like a 50% refund, I still make a profit. So like there are so many different strategies to go around this, and I knew this before going into this project, so I was like I didn't think about the fears as much.
mm. So I guess after getting through all the basic logistics, it was just like, all right, let's just do it.
Yeah, yeah.
How much of your attitude do you think changed? Like in university, did you already have the let's just do it? Or were you like much more
No.
worrisome?
Or I think I had the let's just do it in different aspects, but not for business. So, for example, like when we're sending out applications to internships, we're all like, okay, let's just do it. Just send the application. Who gives a shit? Worst case, you get
Yeah.
rejected.
Yeah.
I had that for that, but it's not for business, or it's not for like other things. It's like I think afraid of failure or the fear of failing, like it's not a general concept where you apply to everything in life. So sometimes it's like you're not afraid of failing one thing, but you're afraid of failing something else. And the skill you need is to like not be afraid of failing anything. And that's very different from not being afraid of sending internship applications.
Mm,
So I definitely didn't have that mindset in university, but I still don't think I have that mindset now. It's but I think the moment you notice something is the moment you start improving, right? So I think I'm improving, which is good.
yeah. Yeah. I find that's the hard part. Like one of my New Year's resolutions last year and continuing on this year was fail more. And the most difficult part is like stomaching the fails that seem to be more consequential. And
Mm,
it's kind of like as similar with accomplishments, as you rise in accomplishments, you feel more confident with yourself, right? But then as
mm,
you rise in failures as well, and like the scale of them, it also feels like a certain sense of shit. Like there's a certain
yeah.
like bad feeling to it, right? And
Mm.
that's painful. Are you just used to that pain, or like do you not experience it anymore?
Not as much. I think in business, not as much. Um, so my last e-commerce project was for chairs. And I
Mm,
think chairs is a different product than the small product that I was used to doing. It's a large product, harder to fulfill. You need to find inventory or storage in the States if you want the shipping to be fast and to be cheap. Um, but what happened was the quality of the chair was really bad, and then the customers didn't like it. But I think the fear I had is no longer the same as because I've dealt with a lot of refunds already. I kind of knew what to do. Um, so it didn't stress me out as much as the first refunds that I would get when I just started. I mean, it's still discomfort, right? But I don't feel much. Like it's not personal.
it's not
Yeah.
personal.
I think a lot of the times in business, you need to like separate business and personal. Don't like if someone criticizes your business, that's not criticizes your service, products, your business. They're not criticizing you. They're just criticizing the business.
Was that separation easy to make?
No. I think the hardest separation is because the home care company I share with my mom, right? Where like she's my mom. That's like the hardest thing
Yeah.
to separate. I think once we figured out a way to separate business from personal life, then it also becomes easier to separate other aspects of the business to your personal life. Like if a customer is like very frustrated at your products, then but that's just your product. It's not you. Like you didn't make the product. Or for me, I didn't make the product myself, right? It's like someone that the factory made. I guess it's my fault for not doing due diligence on making sure the product quality is good. But I gave you your money back. So what else can you ask for? Like what more can I do, right? I did my best.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
sort of
it's
my
like
mindset.
the downside is not there's not that much downside sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I think business. Um, I think so. Alex Hormozy, I remember he started with providing free personal training sessions. I think one of the benefits of that is because when you're giving something for free, they can't ask for more. Like I'm already giving you service for free. Like what the fuck do you want, sort of thing. I think that applies to when customer purchases a product or purchases a service too. So if they purchase a product, worst case you refund it, take the L. They can't really say like there's no more downsides other than that. Like you can think about like oh they're gonna sue you for bad products or like damage your they're gonna like sue you and it will damage your reputation. But like realistically, the possibility of that is like negligent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes
Mm.
sense. Is there a long-term plan with this? So you mentioned drop shipping, small
Hmm.
products, office chair, home care
Hmm.
company. Is there like a long-term view of something that you want to push towards as you're accumulating all these bits and pieces of knowledge?
Yeah, so I think the long-term view has changed for me. Um, at the beginning, I was doing home care, right? And I was working with my mom, but it's hard to separate the personal and business aspects between us, so it makes things very difficult. So I moved to something that was like independent for me, which is e-commerce. Um, but I think e-commerce as a I think e-commerce is getting more and more competitive. And realistically, I don't think I have an edge in e-commerce. I don't think I'm so the most um the most easy to see aspect of why I shouldn't do e-commerce is because I don't even buy products myself. Like how the fuck do I know what people want? Like I'm not a person to spend money on things. The things I spend the most on are like tech, like laptops, monitors, standing desks, things like that. I don't spend money for leisure. So it's hard for me to understand what people like. And sometimes I think they like something, but then they don't like it. Or I think they wouldn't like something, but they really like it. So it's really hard for me to grasp that because I've never been the person to buy that much stuff. Um, so that's the reason why I stopped, or that's the most important reason why I stopped doing it. Um, but I think throughout it, I learned a lot about marketing. So now I'm trying now I'm trying to focus on the home care company a bit more using the knowledge that I've accumulated through e-commerce. For a home care company, I think, or for a home care company, we mainly want to get more clients this year and then figure out if there's a way to provide service for the government or for the health authorities in BC. Because where I live, like a lot of the companies are not owned by Chinese people, and their employees don't speak Chinese, right? So, but at the same time, there's a lot of Chinese people in Vancouver, the senior people who need care, but their caregiver are not able to speak their native tongue. So we thought that this might be the gap that we can fill. So that's what we're trying to do.
Hmm. They say like yeah, like the best businesses, the ones you start, are the ones that offer like the products and services that you would actually use yourself. So
Yeah,
it kind of
yeah,
does make the drop shipping thing of like I'm gonna sell this thing that I'm definitely not gonna buy, but hopefully other people buy a little bit difficult.
yeah. And I realized it's different because some people like these products, right? But for me, I like more refined products. The products that take longer to develop and the products that like have a better user experience. For, like an example would be like MacBook versus like a PC. I like MacBook better. And then like headphones, I like like my Bose headphones I really like, but I wouldn't buy some like random headphones online that I see an ad for. So, but these products, it's not like something you can just source from a factory. You sort of have to develop it, and um, yeah, so it's not something where you can just do drop shipping with it. You at least have to like put in research and development into the product. And an interesting concept that I learned recently that I wanted to share is it's called the 4 Ps. I think
Mm.
it's product, pricing, promotion. I forgot what the other P was. Wait, let me check.
The three P's, not 4 P's.
Yeah.
Pricing, product, promotion.
Oh, and place.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because throughout my journey, let's say at the beginning, and I come from a tech background, and then tech, they're like, oh, the product's the key. We call it product market fit, right?
Yep.
Product. The better the product, the easier it is to sell. Okay, so the product's important. But what about the other shit? And then when I was doing e-commerce, I realized, okay, what they're saying marketing is king. All you need to do is just market. If you have like the classic example is like sell me a pen. The pen's it's just a pen.
It's Wolf
Like
of Wall Street.
yeah, Wolf of Wall Street, sell me a pen. So they're saying like, okay, if you have the right marketing, then you can sell any product. And then through marketing, you also learn like place, which is like distribution channels and also where you're advertising, right? Where are you selling the thing? And then the last is, so I think going through this, right, you kind of see like, oh, tech, they emphasize product. And then e-commerce, they emphasize marketing. And then I just learned this concept recently. I watched an episode on the founder of Anchor, like the power bank company.
Okay.
Yeah, Donald Trump was using it. That's why like they made a video about it,
Okay.
interviewing the founder. But
Uh-huh.
he talked about this concept. I also heard somewhere else too, and I think it makes sense because it's like so you make a good product and you set a correct price for it or a high price for it because it's a good product, and you put it in the right place to advertise, and then you promote it in the right way, and then you get money from this, right? Because at the end you make money and you put more of it into the product, and then sort of the cycle repeats. So what I learned is that it's not just about the product, or it's not just about the promotions, not just about the price. It's like these all have to work in union for things to work, or for a good business to form.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, when you think
yeah,
about, or at least like when I read the biographies or a lot of the business books I read, I like almost exclusively read biographies and business books for no reason. I'm
hmm
not even in business.
yeah,
It's just like the most enduring businesses are the ones that are like, yeah, like you mentioned, the 3 Ps, like a really good product, really good promotion. Like Apple's a very good example of that.
yeah.
That place, of course, and they also have the other P that I'm forgetting. I'm just assuming that they have
Promotion, promotions. Yeah,
it.
product,
Yeah,
price, place, promotion. Yeah.
yeah. What do you think about when you're like making a first investment? And I guess like investment here isn't like buying stocks or something like that. It's more
hmm
like when you're making investments to do like drop shipping, like for your office chair, for
hmm
example.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like some down payment you need to do on
Yes.
suppliers or to purchase the chairs or some warehousing, whatever.
Mm.
How do you come to terms with like paying that money and that money actively leaving your bank into unknown void? Because at least when we
Mm.
shoot applications to these tech companies,
Yeah.
we don't pay
Yeah.
money to apply.
Yeah.
You just shoot. So for
Yeah.
you now, and you're like you're losing something, and you could quantify that something.
Yeah.
How do you rationalize with actually like spending that now?
Um, I think for me, I don't know if I told you this, but at one point I was like very into crypto. That was like, I forgot which year, like 2011-ish or 2021 or 2022-ish.
This
I
is
was
like
trying to like,
when we were trying to like program like a Bitcoin bot or something, right?
I
In
don't know
my
if it was
senior year.
before, I kind of forgot if it was before we lived together or after we lived together. But then I made arbitrage bot, and at that time I also like because I made it, so I have to put money into like Ethereum or Bitcoin, whatever, right? Um, and then there was like a 50% crash. I lost like half of my money. So after, So I think after that one time, I sort of like got desensitized. I was like, okay, well, this happens, so it's not that much if I lose another bit of money, right? And I think also you have to keep in mind, like, you have to be able to only put the money you're okay with losing. A lot of people say that, but like you don't know the exact amount for each person. So each person has to decide that for themselves. And in my case, because as I mentioned earlier, I don't have any other interests other than like playing League, which is free. So I don't
Mm.
spend money for myself that much. So it's okay for me to put things in. Um, and also before my first dropshipping project, there wasn't. I actually planned another project beforehand, which was selling beach mats for a fireworks event in Vancouver,
Mm.
and that failed miserably. And I still have the beach mats at home. And then, but it's an important lesson because that's like the case where I overestimated how much I was going to sell, and I bought way too many, and then I wasn't able to sell them. So after that, I realized, okay, I would rather underestimate the sales than overestimate because I don't want to like have to deal with the inventory if it doesn't sell, right? I think this goes into like supply chain issues, which we didn't learn in school, so I don't know shit. But basically, you don't want to.
Yeah.
For me personally, I don't want to like buy too much inventory and not be able to sell it. So I would always underestimate, and then so this actually worked out in the chairs because the chairs I didn't know the quality and it was bad. So it was good that I didn't order that many, and it was within like an acceptable range of loss for me. So yeah, like sometimes I think when you just get into business, it's easier to like think of the ups, like to like fantasize about the upside.
Mm.
That oh shit, okay, if I order, the more inventory I order, the more money I'm gonna make. So I'm gonna order a shit ton because I have that money. But then it's like, what if you don't make that much sales? And then not only did you waste the money, you also have the product sitting in your house, just like fucking collecting dust. Like, what are you gonna do with that? Right. So like going forward, I've always like underestimated the inventory. And also one thing which makes dropshipping easy to do and why there's so many competitors now is because you don't have to order inventory, right? You only have to order based on the number of sales
Mm.
you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of solves the problem. But if you want to, if you grow, you eventually have to deal with that problem again. Or if you have large products like the chairs I was talking about, like that's that you also have to deal with like inventory issues. Yeah,
Yeah. Probably the biggest failure or like the biggest pain of failure in this case is like not necessarily the money you lose, but like
yeah,
having a failed product stare at you in the face every morning you wake up and go into the living room.
yeah. I still have that. It's like it's still in my house. It just reminds me to not over order any products in the future ever
Mm.
again.
It's like the whiteboard that I have in my room that I just write about like things to like remember and I look at it every time I go on the
Yeah.
computer.
But it's like these things, like when you're first just doing it, like as an engineering person, I was like, okay, I estimated how many people are going to come to the fireworks, how many people are, because I've been to the fireworks myself, so I'm like, okay, they're all sitting on dust or they're all sitting on the sand. I kind of don't want to get my ass dirty, so I would think that they also don't want to get their ass dirty, so they would need a beach mat. So I was selling beach mats. But then you run into problems like, oh, okay, the security is telling you to leave, and then there's like 300,000 people in the beach, but then the people that actually walk past you is not that many people. So
Mm.
things like that, like although there's a large audience, but you're not gonna touch all the audience. You're not gonna interact with all the audience. And then the thing I remember the most is like I was about to give my beach mats for free because someone was like just sitting there, and then they didn't want my beach mat. They rather find like a dirty piece of cardboard and just sat on there. I was like, what the? Because they didn't trust me, right? They didn't know who I was. They didn't know why I was doing this and things like that. Um, yeah, well, that was a pretty important experience for me. It's sort of like the first time I actually stepped out of my comfort zone. Although now I feel like I'm back in the comfort zone again, but yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, that's like one thing I'm thinking a lot about. There was like this YouTube series or something. I don't know where, and I didn't watch it either. I just heard it for like podcasts. It was probably podcasts about podcasts or something like that. And it was this person doing like 100 days of rejection. So every
Mm.
day the person would like do something whack and obviously get rejected. It would be something like going to Starbucks and asking if I could get a drink for free. Or it'll be like
Yeah,
knocking on someone's house and being like, "Can I play soccer in your backyard?" It's like some stupid stuff. And it gets like it's supposed to get worse as the days go on. Like the
yeah,
demands get more and more outrageous. And it's kind of like just desensitizing against failure. So
yeah.
it makes it commonplace. By guaranteeing yourself rejection, it makes rejection feel more normal. And then
Mm.
hopefully there's like translation towards like actual life with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought of I saw that same thing, same episode too. But then, like for me, I don't know about committing my time to do something that like I know is like it's gonna improve my way of handling rejection, but it's like other than that, there's no benefit to it. So might as well just do the things I need to do.
Do you have cynicism about entrepreneurship yet?
Mm, in what way?
Okay. So I guess when I think about cynicism, I see in a lot of people, and maybe this applies for jobs specifically. I don't know if it applies to entrepreneurship, hence why I'm asking. Is I think when people start a new job, they're always super excited because it's like a new
Hmm.
office, it's new people, it's new work, everything's pretty cool. But as people get used to the job and assuming the job is not something they love, there's always like these sticky points that come up of things like, oh, like why am I doing this? Or why am I doing that? Or why do I have to learn this thing? Or why do I have to talk to that person? And why just why? And then this kind of accumulates a certain sense of cynicism until that person either stays because they're too comfortable and the
Mm.
cynicism doesn't push them to get out, or they kind of just like flame out and they burn out. And it's kind of like this ever increasing cynicism until they like switch contexts into something else. Do you feel
Oh,
that
okay.
similarly in entrepreneurship now? Now it's been like 3 years since you started.
It's actually not 3 years because I was doing school for like after I made the company,
Hmm.
I was still doing school. But then
Okay,
I
2 years.
I know what you mean though.
It's kind of like your cynicism with software internships, except yours was like much faster, much faster rate of increase.
I think it's different. I think cynicism in the sense that I don't want to do this anymore. I don't have that, but in the sense that this shit's fucking hard, and then sometimes I just don't want to. Like it's not like I don't want to do it, but I don't want to do this thing sometimes. Um, but I think not in the sense that we're as in a job you would like debate like, oh, why would I need to talk to this person? Why would I need to talk to that person? I think in entrepreneurship, when you don't know the reason why you're doing things, you just don't end up doing anything, just wasting your time. And then I think that's I had that period for a while, but then you end up realizing, okay, your goal is to make money or your goal is to build something. That's your goal. So that's why you have to do these things. Whereas in a job, like, why do you need to talk to that person? Well, because you need to make the money and you need to put food on the table. Like, what else? Once you know that, then it's easier to just do the thing because because then it becomes a responsibility, right? Um, and I think another point is in entrepreneurship, you don't really get bored because I
Mm.
don't know about you. I have ADHD. I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. I'm not diagnosed, but
Hmm.
then when you have like 10 different ideas popping into your head every single day about how you can improve the business, how or every single minute how you can improve the business, how you can potentially start a new business, like and as I mentioned before for the dropshipping thing, I'm very lucky. But then the thing is, the whole process took me like 5 days of getting to the point where like the video went viral, right? Like that's a very small amount of time for something entirely different to happen. And I think that can happen very often in entrepreneurship, especially now, right? I think you can build an app very quickly and then you can start running Facebook ads very quickly. And then if these things happen to work together well, if your app happen to hit it the right market, it's gonna explode very quickly, right? So I think, whereas in a job, it's like you're thinking in terms of like how many years do I have to stay in this until I get that promotion, until I can do something different or switch to a different job. But in entrepreneurship, if you really have that idea, you can do it in like a week.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the possibility of like hitting the lottery ticket sort of thing.
Yes, yes. But then I think it's different from the lottery ticket in the sense that the more skill you have, the more. I think Alex Hormozy said this. Entrepreneurship is different in the sense that the more skill you have, the more tickets you have, and you can spam different tickets into one. So let's say if I didn't know anything, that was one ticket, and I knew marketing, that's another ticket. The next time I put these into the lottery, I'm putting two together, right? And then I have let's say I know software, and then I'm building a software app that also needs marketing. So that's like three things. And then oh,
Hmm.
you have clients now. You need to talk to clients. Oh, well, I talk to clients in Homecare. Now I know how to talk to clients. And that's four tickets in at once, right? So it's different in the sense that like the more skill you have, the more tickets you have.
Right, that makes sense. But of course, like for entrepreneurship, you're not just looking for that like lottery either. Like there's a lot of instances where companies go very slow,
Mm-hmm.
slow and steady. Like one company that comes to mind is IKEA, which grew
Mm-hmm.
very slowly over a very long duration. How do you look at like things like when you do like for example drop shipping, like maybe the 5 day blow up is a bad example, but like when you do drop
Mm.
shipping or a home care company where it's not as explosive or maybe currently it's not as explosive, how do you maintain discipline and at least like drive to continue when you don't see like short term results?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't think I've been very consistent. So I think the biggest problem with me is over the past years I've spent a lot of time like switching products. I don't think that was the right move because or the reason why I did it is because in drop, or at least the people online talking about drop shipping, they've never thought about like creating a bigger company. They usually just
Mm.
use some pre-pack or some product that was pre-made, put a label on it, sell it. Right? That was the mold, sort of what they're doing, and then they can make money with it. But I don't think they would make like,
It's not sustainable long term.
yeah, it's not that sustainable. Like it's good money, but it's not that sustainable. And then when they preach this method, for me, it doesn't really fit with my mindset because, as I mentioned before, I like products that are more refined. And then when I do it this way, it's just like I can't really put my head down. Because I know the product's not that good. I wouldn't buy it personally, or not all products. Some products I wouldn't buy it personally. Um, so we're sort of. Hmm, wait, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, it was like how do you maintain well part of it was consistency. You said you weren't that
Yeah,
consistent.
yeah.
But
So it's
maintain in like entrepreneurship or like continuing with a business, maybe healthcare, if you
mm,
don't see immediate results.
yes. So I think I'm a very bad example because when I didn't see immediate results, I would just change to a new thing, right? Which is really bad
Mm.
because the longer you stay with one thing, that's basically how you're gonna make money because the more you know about it, the more edge you have against other people, against your competitors, and then that makes you a better business than your competitors. And then where if you stay in something for a very short time, then you don't know much. I think now the past few months have been quite consistent because um we hold weekly meetings and then we would talk about what we need to do for the week and then how it aligns with our like quarterly goals. I mentioned before I don't make New Year resolutions. I make like quarterly resolutions now, starting this year, because I think a quarter is more of like a measurement of time for a smaller business
Mm.
to see what they're doing. So what I did with this year at least was I set a goal for the end of the year, and then I you have to reverse engineer that goal into what you have right now, right? So let's say the number of clients, how many hours do I need to service to achieve this number of profit, this amount of profit that I set as a goal, And then how many hours per week do I need to do? How many hours per month do I need to do? Okay. So now that's like, let's say that was like 10 times what we have right now. So how do I achieve that? Like, if I do actually have 10 times the clients, can I handle it? Well, I can't handle it, so I need to build some, or I need to do something to handle it, like make a software, use someone else's software to manage these things. And well, how are you going to get 10 times the clients? You have to do marketing. So, but what types of marketing? And then there's like referrals, um, Google ads, Facebook ads, Chinese platforms, whatever. So there's like a lot of these things you can do. And I think in business, you can never really exhaust your options of, okay, I've tried everything, or you're never going to get to that point. There's always something you can try.
Mm.
So I think that also keeps me going by like, so this year, by setting a goal and just following, having like a realistically reverse engineered steps to take, I think that helps me stay on track to achieving that goal.
What are the goals now that you have? Like what are the business goals and what are your own like interpersonal goals like for yourself? And like how do they mesh?
Mm, I don't really have any interpersonal goals this year. For business goals, it's just like a profit number that we want to
Yeah.
make. And then I think for me, as I mentioned before, the biggest obstacle for me was staying consistent. And then before, like I think I used Google Calendar for a while, and before I was always using Notion, right? And I would keep planning things that I just can't do. Like if I plan 10 things that I need to, or if I have like 10 habits that I want to build, and I would always try to build it all at once, and then oftentimes like one would not work, and I would just like ignore the whole thing. And I have like so many of these plans in the past. I think this year the biggest goal for me is just to track these things. So I put all my work hours in Google Calendar now, like what I want to do for this hour, is it work or personal? And then I spent like 3 hours last week building a dashboard showing the number of hours I worked each day in
Uh-huh.
the week. And then like let's say my ideal work hours is like 6 days a week and then 8 hours per day. So that's 48 hours a week. And then for January it's like 216 hours, right? So my dashboard basically shows like, okay, how many days have passed? How many hours have you worked? Are you there yet? No. But then it makes it easy for me to see like what I've done this month, and also it's like fulfilling too.
So it's kind of like that dashboard as an indicator of you gave this much input and you can find value at least in the input if you're not given any
Yeah,
output.
yeah. At least, so I mentioned consistency, right? This thing at least lets me see that I'm consistent, which is
Mm.
valuable for me.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, something I was thinking a lot about in the past couple months as I began work
Hmm.
is like how the properties of work are, and like one is like the exponential nature of work, where you reap all the benefits, assuming that like work is being like appropriately applied, and there's actually like
Hmm.
output being gained. But like majority of the results are from like later, like much down the
Mm.
line. I
Yeah,
mean, in the beginning time, and that time is relative, but in the beginning time, you basically see nothing. Like you don't get any results, or you do get very slim results.
yeah,
But it's this time where it's most important to keep with it, because if you don't keep with it, you don't get all the outsized returns later on.
yeah, yeah. It's important to like the concept you're mentioning is very important, but I think most people like me, especially, um, it's like these things you don't know until you experience it, right? Like for example, for me, like I kept switching products, and now I realize, okay, it's always very easy to start a new product, but it's very difficult to develop that product. And I didn't know that until like I sort of like reflected on it. I was like, okay, I didn't stay on the product for long enough, so now I'm gonna try to stay on something for longer. I'll see how it goes.
Mm.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the common sense is not really common sense. It's only common sense when you experience the pain.
Yeah, that's something
Yeah,
I'm working on now. It's kind of like
yeah.
one thing that maybe another resolution, or at least something I want to work upon for me, is like, how do I learn lessons that other people have experienced? Because I'm
Mm,
the type of like person that like if my mom told me, and I actually did this as a kid because I was dumb, but my mom told me the stove was hot.
Mm.
For some reason, I didn't believe
Yeah.
her. So I had to touch the
Yeah.
stove and realize it was actually hot. And that's
Mm.
like a lot of things. Like a lot of the lessons I learned was, oh, I knew like I shouldn't be doing that, or I knew that it's this way because I heard from other people
Mm.
online, but also like in person and like from friends, from family. I know it works this way, but
Mm.
yeah, I still had to do it myself to actually like kind of figure out the
Yeah.
lesson for me and to realize
Yeah.
that it's a real lesson.
Yeah, it's really hard. I'm not sure if it's actually possible, if it's even possible. I think the closest way I can think of getting that is, we know the context behind the lesson, right? I think that's why in books sometimes like the core message of a book or of a chapter is like very simple, but then they have like 60 different anecdotes talking about different people who like to revolve around that concept. I think that
Mm.
like strengthens your memory. But ultimately, I think it's so different from like experiencing it yourself, though.
Yeah, it's much more
Yeah,
visceral. It's like you
yeah,
feel
yeah,
it. Yeah, and you like
yeah,
you remember the error and it pains you. It's like it's not even it pains you when you're reflecting, but it's like for me it's like when I'm walking to the subway, I think about it.
yeah,
Or I'm
yeah,
like I'm
exactly.
cooking and it comes up. And then it's just like I'm cooking and then it's like fuck. I'm gonna go back to cooking. It's
Yeah,
like there's those little moments where it hurts. It's not like the when I'm writing it in
yeah.
a journal I'm thinking about it. Like
But
that's okay.
these moments happen all the time. That's why you
Oh
can remember it
yeah.
so strongly, right?
Oh yeah, it's like every day. Like
Yeah,
many
same.
times a day. Yeah, that's like the painfulness of those little moments and those stories.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're in business now. It's like unlimited potential technically.
technically,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, because you have unlimited customers or unlimited profit. Or at least much more scalable versus like working in a company.
Mm,
When is enough enough?
mm. I don't know actually. I feel like a lot of people agree with me on this, but for someone in business, like your goal is no longer just to make money, right? You just enjoy making business decisions. I think originally I set a goal, but I don't think that goal is relevant anymore because I think even if I become financially free, which I'm not yet, but even if I do become financially free, I still want to do something. I don't think I would enjoy life just like playing games um or just like sleeping all day. It's just I don't think that's fulfilling for me. I think
Mm,
I think for most people who are in business, why they do business in the first place is because they just enjoy doing something they own.
mm,
So that's why they do it, right? Although it's like tiring sometimes they don't want to do it, but ultimately it's better than all the other things that they can do. So that's why they do it. So
mm.
I'm not sure if that question is important for me because I think even if I have nothing or even if I make enough money, I'm still gonna do something.
Mm. Do you find meaning
Yeah.
in your work then?
Mm, hmm. I'm not sure how you would define meaning.
Maybe however you find meaning or however you want to define meaning, whatever that is.
I find meaning in the sense that I feel fulfilled when I work. Uh, Not necessarily in the sense where I feel like I'm doing greater good for the society. Not that type of meaning, but meaning for
Mm,
myself. Like, okay, I enjoy doing this. It makes me feel like life is worthwhile, and that's good for me, or good enough for me.
hmm. It's kind of like you realizing or you actually pursuing action for what you want to do.
Yeah,
Kind of like the
yeah.
agency.
Mm.
Okay, rounding out my two questions, and I asked these two questions to like both of my previous guests I have.
Hmm.
I'll probably tune these as the times go, but hey, these questions are solid for now. The first one is, what does an ideal life look like for you now?
Mm, that's interesting. I think my life right now is pretty ideal. Maybe like more, maybe like my life right now, but more consistent
Mm.
and more consistent and more space. Because I think I enjoy having a lot of space, like in office sort of thing.
Mm.
So maybe that. But otherwise, I think schedule wise and like environment is all pretty good for me.
Hmm. How busy are you now? That's not one of the last two questions. I'm just curious.
It's not hard to say. I'm not the type of person who like wakes up and just works until they sleep yet. Um, I think just like normal work hours, but like 6 days instead of five. And currently on Saturdays, I usually try to go out and just go for a walk or at least do something outside. Because I find that if I don't do it, like I get very stressed and I like, or not just me, but like everyone just gets in a bad mood.
Mm.
Yeah,
I
and
was
then
taking a break.
arguments happen. Yeah, things. Um, yeah, I want to try to work for longer. Trying to figure out good way to do that because right now what I do is I have like a spare monitor in my trunk, and then when I go to WeWork, I bring the monitor to WeWork, and I bring it every day. Uh, so actually a lot of people do that, right? So I think it's
Okay.
fine. But then the problem is the parking is only 3 hours, so I would have to like move the car every like 3 hours to another parking lot. And then if I wanted to stay longer, either I have to like buy the monthly parking, or park somewhere else where it's unlimited and just buy an office at WeWork, which is like 800 to depends on how big of the office you want. For one person, I think it's like 800, and then for two people, it's like 1200. But then, like, it's kind of a hard decision because I can also work in the common areas. It's just like it's difficult for me to bring the monitor, and I don't know if the monitor is necessary, but it makes me enjoy work more. So kind of like trying to strike a balance between these things.
It's whether the monitor is worth $800 a month.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Last question.
hmm
What is a message you want to give your future self if you ever come back to this?
Come back to like right now or
Come back to this episode. It's kind of
come
like a
back to this
time
episode.
capsule.
Mm. Keep doing what you're doing. Stay consistent. Suck it up.
Well said. Hey, it's me again. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Nobody Yet. I just have so much fun recording these. It's just fun just to like casually talk to friends and be able to go a little bit deeper than what we usually talk to. And I use kind of this podcast as a Trojan horse to do so. If you're interested in documenting your current perspectives and your current life at this moment, shoot me a message on IG or something, and maybe I could bring you on. Nobody Yet is really just a series for documenting my life and the life of my guests at this specific time. So if that appeals to you, shoot me a message and we'll figure something out. Yeah, that said, I'll see you next week, next Saturday.